Hi everyone, Fionnuala J here, just dropping by with a sneak peek at some exclusive content over on the Flop Culture Patreon. That's patreon.com/flopculture, where you will get an extra, at least 2 bonus episodes a month on all things flops, sometimes bops, and everything in between. Hope you enjoyed this little preview. Michael Cragg, thank you so much for joining me on this very special episode on the Patreon of Flop Culture. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. I'm a big fan of yours and your writing. I'm going to link it all below so my listeners can enjoy and get your book, which is also brilliant. I wanted to have this conversation with someone who knows their stuff, and you do, because it's a very interesting conversation, and it came off the back of a little chart battle that happened last week. Can you explain what was going on between the Brats and the Tortured Poets with regards to Charli's Brat release and Taylor potentially pipping her on the UK charts? What was happening there?
Yeah, so I think the chart updates had sort of put Charli's Brat album ahead of Taylor's album. And I think, weirdly, Bon Jovi was sort of in the mix as well. So it was constantly sort of flipping between the three of them. And then at 7 p.m. on Thursday, the day before the chart sort of deadline for counting the figures, Taylor unleashed a whole new version of her album, which I think brings the variance to like 34. And they were very specifically sort of geo-blocked to the UK. They were only going to be available until sort of Friday evening or Friday afternoon when the cutoff was. So it felt like a very purposeful sort of, not attack, but move to prevent Charli from getting number one. Or not, maybe not necessarily preventing Charli, but certainly to sort of sustain this period at number one that Taylor's had. Billie Eilish and Dua Lipa had both knocked her off of number one previously with their new albums, but only for a week. So she'd sort of been number one, dropped down, went back to number one. And that had happened a couple of times. So I think fans were a bit like, why not let Charli have this one? And then you can just go back to number one the week after. And then maybe you start to think, well, has Matty Healy got something to do with this as well? Because obviously Charli's fiance is the producer and drummer in the 1975. So then there's like all this sort of intrigue. So I love it. I mean, I love a chart battle. I didn't think we would have one again like this, but I'm sort of glad it's happened.
I love a chart battle. I found it really, really interesting, especially in the context of Taylor and this particular album. Like with the Torture Poets department, I think in the UK, with her getting the number one over Charli that week, which at the time of recording was last week, I think it means it's her longest running album at number one like ever in her career. So I can understand from her perspective. Obviously, she's like, she's mad about records, constantly wanting to break records. I think she's very keen on establishing her legacy. So from that perspective, I'm like, yeah, like I do get it. I do get why you would see a record like that and be like, I want to break that. I don't care who is in my way. I don't care if it's Charli. I don't care what other
but also
is.
it's only like her personal record. You know, if she was going for like some insane sort of like female artist with the most weeks at number one, but also like she'd already not been consecutive. Like in America, she's at number one for consecutive weeks. Like Billie Eilish hasn't been able to do that. Dua Lipa didn't do it. Whereas here, it's non-consecutive. So immediately you're a bit like, well, it's a record, but it's sort of not. And also, she's currently on tour in the UK, which means her streaming is going to be through the roof for these entire like next few weeks. So even if Charli had knocked her off, she would have immediately gone back because, you know, once she's in the country, this tour has sort of galvanized her fans, obviously, wherever she's traveled around the world. And it's, you know, that's her personality, I think. Her personality is to sort of succeed at all costs. And I think that's what really interested people is Charli's like the opposite to Taylor in a lot of ways. It's like the head girl versus the sort of school rebel. And I think people really picked up on that. And that's why it sort of got people talking.
Did you like what you hear? I hope you did. If you did, you can listen to the episode in full at patreon.com/flopculture. Other benefits to becoming a patron include getting the main episodes ad-free. We love that, girls. And you get them a little bit earlier than normal listeners too. So that's nice, isn't it? Why don't you join today? Patreon.com/flopculture. I'll see you there.